For the past few years, I wanted to use the Pro Max over the Pro, but I just could not do it. The Pro Max was always just too bulky, it was too heavy, and even the added battery life or the added features could not convince me to use the Pro Max for more than a week. But this year with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, my experience has been completely different. So please do not let your previous iPhone experience sway your opinion because things are a bit different this time around. Let's start with the design because this year there is a major difference compared to the previous iPhones, and that is titanium. And while the brushed titanium finish does feel amazing in the hand, the big selling point here is the weight reduction. And let me tell you, while the iPhone 15 Pro does feel lighter than the 14 Pro, I never really found the weight of the Pros to be an issue in my everyday use. But with the Pro Max, my goodness, is the difference substantial. For the past 3 years, I've used the Pro over the Pro Max because of the weight and the overall bulk of the phone. But this year, the 15 Pro Max is 8% lighter than the 14 Pro Max, and the Pro is about 10% lighter than last year's Pro model. And don't let those small numbers fool you. The difference is noticeable right away. These are the lightest Pro iPhones ever. And if you pair that weight reduction with the rounded titanium edges, I think we might also have the most comfortable iPhone of all time on our hands. So I've noticed that when I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max in my pocket, it's not quite as uncomfortable as it has been in previous years. Normally, it's just like weighing down in my pocket. It's too heavy, but this year, they kind of feel the same in the pocket. I mean, I really cannot discern as big of a difference in terms of weight between these two like I can in pretty much every year past. Now, it is still bulky. It does still poke out a little bit. As you can see, like when you're walking, you can see it does kind of poke out a little bit more, but honestly, it's not a huge difference. I mean, it's not like what we've seen in years past. But the biggest difference between these two, aside from the size and the camera system, which we'll talk about here in a minute, is going to be the display size, because we do have a 6.7 inch display on the Pro Max versus a 6.1 inch display on the 15 Pro. Now, they do have the same 120 Hertz Super Retina XDR display, but I forgot how much of a difference those extra 6 inches make. Like if you switch from a Pro to a Pro Max, you will be shocked at how much more content fits on your screen at any given time. Like while browsing on X or Twitter or on Safari, when taking photos, basically everywhere. You know, at first, when I first started using the 15 Pro Max, everything felt smaller to me. Like it just did not even seem like I was really using an iPhone. And that's just from using a Pro for so long. But after a while, after a couple of days, you get used to it and you really start to, really love the fact that you can see more content on your screen. Now, I will say that a big worry of mine going into this switch from the Pro to the Pro Max was one-handed use, because I have average sized hands. I don't have big hands. So for me, I can reach my hand all the way across the phone, but it's very hard. I have to pretty much squeeze the phone. So I consider this to be a two-handed phone, whereas the Pro is easily a one-handable phone, no matter what your hand size is. Now, I will say that reachability is a must on the Pro Max. Like this helps me get to the control center and the notification center or tap on notifications really easily with just one hand. And we do also have the one-handed keyboard here, which helps a lot if I want to type with one hand. But typing in general is going to be pretty much impossible to do with one hand on the Pro Max unless you have overly large hands. Not even overly large, just above average hands is probably what it's going to take in order to type with one hand. I find that 99.99% of the time, I have to type with two hands on the Pro Max. I can really only use one side of the keyboard if I'm typing with one hand, unless I use that one-handed keyboard. Little trick there. Now, there is one thing that I want to mention, because in theory, I thought that the new action button, which the Pros both have, the Pro and the Pro Max both have, this replaces the mute switch for the first time ever on an iPhone. And going into this, before the phone actually released, I was thinking to myself, that action button is going to make up for the amount of hand gymnastics I have to do with the Pro Max. Like I can easily press that to perform certain actions without having to, use another hand and pull down on the control center to go into the flashlight. But I was mistaken. And I say that because the action button on the Pro Max is just simply not in a very accessible place. Like it's not where your hand naturally falls. Now, if you're a lefty, if you use your left hand a lot, yeah, it's easy to press with just your, thumb right there. But if you're a righty like me, it's really hard to be able to have to adjust your hand and then go up and press on that action button. It's just not a natural feel. And I find myself pressing the volume buttons like 9 times out of 10. It took me a while before I actually learned where the action button was. And it's just so much higher than you think at first. I just found the action button to be a lot more accessible on the Pro versus the Pro Max. And as a matter of fact, the only 2 times I've dropped my iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is a record by the way, I never usually drop my phone that much, but the only 2 times I've dropped it have been when I'm trying to reach for that action button. And if it were not for our sponsor today, Pitaka, I probably would have had to go to the Apple Store to get this thing repaired. So as a huge fan of the aramid fiber, the carbon fiber look, Pitaka has always made the best aramid fiber case on the market for many years, and they have improved their flagship Mag Easy case yet again for the iPhone 15 series. So this case is not only like a feather, it's super lightweight, it's super thin, but it also has this raised metal lip around the camera to keep it protected. And you'll notice that this case has cutouts to show off the titanium frame, but Pitaka does also make a fully covered Mag Easy Pro case. And this one is also lightweight and sleek, but it offers full protection and has these extremely tactile buttons on the sides that are very satisfying to press. I have this black and gray one, but it also comes in all black along with a cool black and blue option. And for the regular Mag Easy case, you have this black and gray one along with Rhapsody and Overture options. And both of these cases have some of the strongest magnets out there, both for MagSafe charging or for attaching to Pitaka's other accessories like the Mag Easy grip, the slider, the card sleeve, or the car mount. As you can imagine, I get a ton of cases every single year when the new iPhone comes out, and sponsorship aside, pretty much every single year I always find myself going back to the Pitaka cases. I don't know what it is, it just fits my aesthetic the best, and I just love their cases. So if you want to grab the Mag Easy or the Mag Easy Pro, click my link down in the description below and use code Brandon10OFF to get 10% off your order. So let's talk about the cameras, because aside from the size, this should be the other main area you focus on when trying to decide between the Pro or the Pro Max. Now on the surface, both camera systems seem the same, and they pretty much are. I mean, we have the same 48 megapixel triple camera setup with Smart HDR5, next generation portrait mode, deep fusion, and all those goodies. But the difference between these two comes on the telephoto camera, because the 15 Pro Max has the all new Tetra Prism camera design that allows for 5x optical zoom and 25x digital zoom. This is compared to the 3x optical and the 15x digital on the 15 Pro. And as somebody who does not really zoom very often at all with my iPhone camera, the 5x button has made me want to zoom in on subjects. It's made me want to actually zoom more because I have the capability to. I don't need to move closer like I had to in the past, and this has been really nice. But the biggest difference I've noticed with the 5x lens over the past couple of weeks is in portrait mode shots, because the 5x portrait shots are noticeably better than the 3x portrait shots that you get with the 15 Pro. You'll pretty much notice the difference instantly because the background blur is just more intense, the cutouts of the subject are more precise, and just everything seems better. Even the HDR, the dynamic range, everything just seems better when you take a portrait shot with 5x compared to 3x. Now, one area that I noticed a pretty big difference in compared to last year's Pro models is shutter lag when taking 48 megapixel raw photos. So for some reason, the 15 Pro Max had less shutter lag than the 15 Pro. You know, that could have just been an anomaly in my testing, but every single time for the past 2 weeks, for some reason, the shutter lag was reduced more on the Pro Max compared to the Pros, but there should be no difference there. And because we have a USB-C port on both the Pro and the Pro Max, that means that we can connect an SSD or an SD card to the phone and shoot ProRAW video directly to that external storage. And as a matter of fact, I've shot several videos on that, and the transfer speeds are also very, very quick when trying to transfer files off your iPhone onto that external device. Oh, and one last thing I want to talk about with the 5x camera on the Pro Max is that action mode shots while zoomed in at 5x are absolutely insane. Like, I've tested this multiple times, and if you're zoomed all the way in at 5x, the full 5x optical zoom, and you put your video in action mode, if you turn action mode on and you literally run, like shake the phone as hard as you can, when you watch it back, you're going to be like, this isn't even the same video. Like, it is so smooth that it seems like you're on a gimbal. And to get specific here, the 15 Pro has regular optical image stabilization, but the 15 Pro Max has 3D sensor shift optic image stabilization and autofocus. And those 10,000 micro adjustments per second is double that of the 15 Pro, which is pretty impressive. So if you like shooting action shots, the 15 Pro Max is going to be easily the better choice here. Now, with that bigger display and that bigger frame, means that we can fit a bigger battery inside the 15 Pro Max. And I will say that after using these two for 2 weeks, I've used one for a full week. So I used the 15 Pro for my first week and the 15 Pro Max for my second week. Each one of these have a separate SIM card, eSIM, inside of them. So I was able to use them the same way. And I noticed that pretty much every single night with the 15 Pro at around 7 p.m., I would have to put it on the charger because it would be at or right below 20% battery. But with the Pro Max, I noticed that around that same time, I would still have right around 40% battery life remaining, which was really nice. So every single day I used my 15 Pro Max, I was able to live off of one charge. Like when I woke up, my phone was fully charged and I didn't have to charge it again until I went to bed, which is nice. Now, it's not like it's a hassle to charge your phone, especially these days. I just throw it on a MagSafe charger on my desk while I'm working and it's not a big deal. But you may not always be at your desk 24/7 like me. You may not always be inside. You may be traveling, you may be hiking, something like that. And that's an area where those extra couple or few hours of battery life really come in handy, which you get with the Pro Max. Now, when it comes to performance, the performance is exactly the same on the Pro and the Pro Max. So we do have the A17 Pro chip in both, and we do also have 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, one area where I really thought there would be a difference is in terms of the heat output. So I really thought that potentially the Pro would get hotter because it's a smaller frame and there's more going on in that smaller frame, but I actually did not notice a difference, and they both seem to be about as cool as each other, especially after the iOS 17.0.3 update came out to fix the overheating issue with iOS 17 and the iPhone 15s. I really did not notice a difference at all between these two in terms of heat output, lag, anything. They perform exactly the same. But an area where these two differ is with the storage and the price. So the 15 Pro starts at 128 gigabytes still, whereas the Pro Max starts at 256 gigabytes. Now both go up to 1 terabyte, but you have to get 256 as the minimum for the Pro Max, and that is also why we have a $200 difference between these two this time around. So if you want to go from the Pro to the Pro Max, you're gonna have to shell out an extra $200. So all in all, the differences between the 15 Pro and the 15 Pro Max are more significant this year than they have been in pretty much any other year, in my personal opinion. Now, I think you should reassess your biases and your decisions that you made in past years, because if I just stuck to what I told myself, last year and the year before and the year before, I would go with the Pro and not even consider the Pro Max, but I think you should really reassess your decisions and, like I said, your past judgments until you actually try out the Pro Max. If that takes you going to the Apple Store, picking up this Pro Max and, fake putting in don't act like you're robbing the store, but just put it in your pocket and see how it feels, I think you could actually see a decision change, internally for yourself. You might actually like the Pro Max more than you thought you would. Like, yes, at the end of the day, the Pro is going to be the better form factor for 99% of people, especially if you have average sized hands or small hands, the Pro is going to be easily the best to hold. But like I said, the 15 Pro Max is not near as annoying, honestly, as it was in the past, because it's not as heavy. It doesn't make you, droop your pants because you just have it in your pocket. You're not going to get that with the Pro Max this year. And I just find it to be a lot more useful and a lot more easy to use because of that 8% weight reduction. And even when I say that, it does not sound like a lot on paper, but trust me, it is a big difference. As somebody who's bought every single Pro Max in existence, this one feels better than any of those. Now, I do find myself still having to type with 2 hands on the Pro Max, whereas I can easily do 1 hand on the Pro, like I mentioned earlier. But honestly, the 5X tetraprism camera, the improved battery life, and that bigger display have convinced me this year to switch full-time to the 15 Pro Max over the 15 Pro. Even though the Pro is more comfortable in the hand and it's easier to access the action button, especially. I love the action button, and it's so much easier to access that with the Pro than the Pro Max. But still, I'm gonna go with the 15 Pro Max this year. So time will tell if my decision changes, but at this point, I'm 2 weeks in, and I think I've pretty much made up my mind for at least the next year. We'll see what the 16 Pro and Pro Max brings, but for now, I'm happy with the Pro Max, and I really wanna know what you guys think. Do you like the Pro? Do you like the Pro Max? Let me know all your thoughts down there in the comments below, and especially tell me which one you chose. I'm really curious to see if you chose the Pro or the Pro Max this year and why. So if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up. Also, make sure to subscribe for more iPhone 15 coverage. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.